What movie do you regret watching? That's hard. One that immediately comes to mind is Shrek 3, but I think I'd have to go with Joe's Apartment. For those who don't know, Joe's Apartment is about this guy who buys an apartment infested with cockroaches. I remember the cockroaches even had a musical number in the movie. Requiem for a Dream. Known a lot of people who have overdosed over the years, and I grew up in a religious family, so between the kids being junkies and the mom being whacked out of her mind, it hit me in a way that I really didn't care for. That being said, it definitely pulled a lot of heartstrings and is an amazing film in that regard, but damn, I will never watch that shit ever again. It's a toss-up between a few movies. One is Jack Ketchum's The Girl Next Door. Never had a movie really make me angry before. Another was an 80s TV movie called The Day After. Saw it when I was a kid and rented it years later with some friends and we turned it off. Pretty depressing movie. I'd have to look the name of this other one up, but it's along the lines of humans relocating to another planet and something goes wrong with one of the ships and it floats off into space. The movie spans years and years of the lives of the people on board. They have an eye room that causes happy feelings and the people become so dependent on it that the eye kills itself. It's a depressing story too. Into the Wild. I don't think giving away all your material possessions, his parents' money, and disappearing into the wild without telling your very worried sister is acceptable despite how awful your parents are. Brothers Grimm. Not so fun fact, I used to love cream puffs. Could eat an entire plate full of the mini ones, and I started munching on some just in time to see the BG scene where the little girl gets swallowed alive by a horse. You know, with all the cobwebs, I can't even think about eating cream puffs now. Both Blade Runner movies, I guess, they didn't stick with me, and now I have a negative aftertaste after watching them, mostly because of ruined expectations. I supposed I would enjoy myself at least once. Didn't happen. Napoleon Dynamite. Literally the worst movie I've seen, and I would be sincerely shocked if a mortal being could make a worse movie. I could strap a camcorder to my forehead and make a more engaging story. Literally the only thing saving the movie is the dance scene at the end, and the rest is a crime against film. High Rise. Maybe it was a too high concept for me, I don't know, just UGH. After it was over, my lady and I discussed what we just witnessed. Then we revealed to each other that it would have been okay to turn it off roughly 1/2 hour into it, but we didn't because we thought the other was enjoying it. The Truman Show. Not because it was a bad movie, but because it made me super paranoid about my life. I wait every day for a camera to fall out of the sky next to my feet, or maybe someday seeing a UFO land with some aliens coming up to me and saying, "Here's a chomp shirt," and I finally get to hear the hidden laugh track. Then they introduce to me my fake parents, etc. Can we include TV shows? The Shannara Chronicles, among other things. There was fuck all about whoever Shannara was. This did not go in the direction I expected. I wish it did. It would have been much better. And to be fair, any other direction probably would have been better. Toy Story 4. Didn't want to watch it as I love TS3, but the family chose it for movie night. Not only did I feel Toy Story 3 ended perfectly, but the fourth movie felt a little redundant, forced, and out of character. The behavior of some of the main characters seemed to completely forget the development from the previous films. Steven Spielberg's AI. I've never gotten angry at not liking a movie, but this movie had me pacing around yelling, "Oh, the aliens can bring back the robots, Mom, but only for 24 hours? There's a time limit for some reason? That's the dumbest thing I have ever heard. And don't bother trying to explain to me that they weren't aliens because I don't fucking care." Probably an unpopular opinion, but the autopsy of Jane Doe was just so predictable. As soon as I realized that it was paranormal horror, I knew exactly how it was going to end. Watched it anyways, was underwhelmed by the end. The only thing that surprised me is that they killed a cat instead of a dog, so there's that. Batman vs Superman. I watched it in cinema and it was the biggest waste of $25 I've ever experienced. At least the last airbender is so bad that it's kind of funny. VVS is the perfect example of a movie that is just not enjoyable to watch. When lockdown happened, I was forced to work out at home, and when I like to watch Netflix. I watched Rocky, Creed, 12-Round Gun, and other movies about boxers because that's just what I like and they're inspiring. So one day I was getting ready to get this workout and I was searching for a new movie and found $1 Million Baby, directed by Clint Eastwood. I like Clint Eastwood films, they're badass. I pressed play like an idiot, thinking it was going to be another started from the bottom fighter film, and proceeded to train. For the first while the movie kicked ass and it felt good watching Maggie accomplish her dream, but then it happened. The movie became a tragedy in less than a minute and I was so surprised I stopped my crunches. Should be alright, this is a movie about overcoming hardship, I said to myself, but it gets worse. Call Me By Your Name. I was recommended by someone on Reddit, and I saw it received critical acclaim. I hated it, and it's not like I don't enjoy good dramas or that I'm homophobic or anything, but I just thought it was a terrible, boring movie. On a related note, in the same thread I think someone suggested the movie Your Name, so despite having a prejudicial dislike of anime, I gave it a shot and I really enjoyed it a lot. Robin Hood, 2018. There are not very many movies that I have started watching and not finished. I have sat all the way through some pretty horrible movies. Most recently, I think The Lone Ranger with Johnny Depp was the last movie, before this, that I just had to turn off. I wanted so much to like this movie, but I knew from the very beginning, when they tried to make the Crusades into the Iraq War complete with medieval versions of US military flak jackets, this movie was going to be horrible. I sort of enjoyed Tim Minchin's parts, but that was it, and it has to be pretty bad for me to only sort of enjoy anything with Tim Minchin. The man is a comedy genius. Elektra. I've seen some awful, bland movies before, but Elektra was nonsensical garbage. I saw it at a dollar theater on Habs night, so literally paid 50 cents to see it, and that bill was too high by several dollars. Yes, they should have paid each attendee several dollars just to compensate them. It was just bad. Van Helsing. Went into it with low expectations. High expectations can ruin an adequate movie. This was going to be a stupid fun movie. It fell short even of my low expectations. Hated it for that. The Hunter, 2011. It's apt mercenary trying to track down endangered thylacine, supposedly extinct animal. It's sad, and how humans destroyed everything and still continue to do so is depressing. 500 Days of Summer. Man, when watching a movie, I want to start at the beginning and end at the end, not start in the middle, jump back and forth and back and forth and forth and forth and back and back and back and forth. God, that was awful. The Hostel movie series by Eli Roth. Trust me guys, that is not simply a horror movie, it is something much more horror than that. It's just blatant like no other movie I've seen. If you don't want to be scarred for life, avoid it, period. Independence Day. Resurgence. Independence Day is my all-time favorite movie. Honestly can't tell you how many times I've watched it. There was a period I watched it every night before I fell asleep for several months. I was so excited when the sequel was announced. We went and saw it on opening night. Totally fucking ruined it. It should never have been made. Woman in the Window. It's a new film that came out in 2021, but it's simul trash because of the trippy dream sequences and the ending. At first I was engaged and ready for a psychological thriller, but as the movie went on I slowly became uninterested and felt like I could have watched something else. My uncle who was visiting came in one day after Gamer came out and asked me if I'd seen it yet. I said number. He turned it on for us to watch. It's a terrible movie, and it's even more terrible when you're watching it with a much older relative. I don't regret the time we spent together, and I guess he did suggest that because he knew I liked video games and probably thought it was a way to connect with me. I just really wish he had suggested anything else, because good lord. Percy Jackson, Lightning Thief and Percy Jackson, Sea of Monsters. I hoped that the second movie would be better, but it was just as horrible as the first one. They're trash. If you watched them and liked them, then you probably haven't read the books. Grover isn't even Grover anymore. He was just some random satyr with the same name, but he was definitely not the Grover I know and love. The personality was almost completely different. Midsommar made me mentally sick for a few days, almost like the human centipede. It's FCKD up. I almost never watch horror movies, but when I do I damn make sure to swear every time afterwards. I will never watch another one in my life. It's like when I drink alcohol. 2 movies, and I've felt this way about these movies for a long time. Say 7N, I know a lot of people think it's a good, compelling movie with great acting, but it's also non-stop disturbing and miserable. Freddy got fingered. So bad. There's even a scene in the movie where someone in a crowd holds up a sign that says something like, "When will this movie be over?" The answer is not soon enough. As I saw someone say recently, bad horror can be unintentionally good comedy. But bad comedy is just bad. I tried to stream Logan after smoking some medicine and ended up watching this strange movie about the occult. I kept thinking to myself, maybe this is the intro, backstory, and kept watching for about an hour. Around midnight I decided to look up the Logan trailer to realize that these 2 movies are not the same, and the version I was watching sucked big time. Lesson learned. Django Unchained. I felt bad that hubby was suffering from gout and let him choose. I took Netflix away from him after that. You probably need to know I can't do violence and gore. Action movies with a million guns being fired and bad guys keeling over without splattering are okay. Guardians. It's a Russian Avengers knockoff. It's so fucking bad. The only cool part of the movie is where the guy that can move really fast, or teleport, I don't remember what his power was honestly, is killing some cartel dudes in the desert. The movie was so bad that they had to shoehorn in a group Genki Dama from Dragon Ball to save the day. Like WTF. D-Wars. The poster from the movie looked okay. I gave it a try. It started with a flashback within a flashback. From there it was a roller coaster of terrible ideas mixed together. If in doubt, just check the IMDb forum page called Things I Learned Watching D-Wars. Pure gold. Star Wars Rise of the Skywalker was the worst experience of my life. I watched worst of the worst when it comes to film, but this was an attack on my personality, a lore that maybe saved people from suicide. It gave them hope, a new hope. My favorite realm turned into a joke. I will never forget what Disney has done to my favorite escapism. Emoji Movie, Frozen 2. Luckily I haven't watched any of Disney's other live-action remake crap. anyone else feel like Raya and the Last Dragon was just made by some other studio and sold by Disney, because they went from "what is this shit" to "hey, that's not bad" in like a single movie. Pacific Rim 2, it just fucking ruined my favorite character, and the new ones were boring as hell. The story had already had a happy conclusion, so it was completely unnecessary anyway. Some parts of the movie were a little bit interesting and new, but I was left disappointed in the end. Fuck Pacific Rim 2. Transformers: Age of Extinction. I hate every minute of that movie, and it fluctuated between putting me to sleep with how boring it was and just hurting my brain with how fucking stupid it was. I didn't even pay for it. It was just on TV one day, and I still feel like I overpaid for it. I went on a binge of Steven Seagal films after watching a YouTube clip of him ever so casually holding a gun, covering his back, while making a phone call. It is hilarious. Made it all the way to The Foreigner, 2003, before I gave in. His film started well enough, but then became preachy and self-absorbed before then morphing into just so plain and boring that not even the action was worth the time. I've promised myself I'll get back to it. Just not yet. Innocent File. Good, bad, atrocious. I'm willing to expand the hours watching. Due to the fact that I love the craft of filmmaking, I'll sleep when I'm dead. 2003 is the exception to that belief. Slower than molasses pacing, the barest minimum of a plot, repetitious shot compositions, drab color palette, and overall bland as hell performances, even with Clive Owen, who is an underrated actor. I recommend Children of Men, or Bent, if you haven't seen both, as lead, a little-known film for good reason. Almost every single Netflix production, they often have a great topic, theme, that promises to delve into big philosophical questions, and then, instead of going further, they just wallow, fancy stuff, big explosion, and, best example, Extinction. Hancock. That film started out pretty well but just kinda lost the plot during the second half of the film. It is the only film, so far, in my 30+ years on this earth where I came out of the cinema feeling like I'd wasted my fucking time. Casualties of War. I was a teenager and way too young to watch it. I got nightmares for weeks after that. Michael J. Fox at the time was making comedies, so I was unprepared to see him in a dramatic role. Mowgli, Legend of the Jungle. It's like the Jungle Book but the different plot story, which I don't mind, but the only problem is so fucking damn dark, no funny moments. And they killed the Mowgli's little white best friend Wolf. Adore. This cinematic abomination stars Naomi Watts and Robin Wright, who's using a bad Aussie accent. They play best friends in Australia. They both have young adult sons. Robin's character cheats on her husband with Naomi's character's son. Upon realizing that his best friend has been banging his mom, Robin's character's son sleeps with Naomi's character. This gross-ass, pseudo-incestuous affair is discovered, and they keep doing it. I had to turn the movie off. Hereditary is by no means a bad movie. The situation in it just upsets me a lot, even if I just think about it. Maybe because I have siblings, I never want to watch it again. It was also my first experience watching a horror film alone in the theater. The guy next to me literally stood up and said nope, leaving the theater after that scene 1/3 through the film. Thanks for the memories, Movie Pass. Ad Astra the Boy 2, the first one was amazing though, but Porter was the worst. Though it only received positive feedback, I feel like the critics only had an eye for the performance and the shots but didn't care about the fact that nothing happened, because the villain keeps doing villainous things, which include pedophilia. Nobody stopped him even though that would have been quite possible. and the main character didn't really change. I watched it with my father, and it's still forbidden to talk about it. If anyone mentions that movie, the reaction will be disgust. Spiral, 2020. Partner was excited for us to watch this, was keen to see Chris Rock. We watched it for ages, looking for clues for links to Jigsaw, and keeping an eye out for Chris Rock. Only when the final credits rolled did we realize this was not in fact Spiral, from the Book of Saw, but a queer horror movie of similar name. We did wonder why the focus was so heavily on the sexuality of the main characters. Made sense when we realized. The Conjuring. The Devil Made Me Do It. I went and saw that movie the other night with some friends. This girl I was interested in, who's kind of a religious fanatic, found out I went and saw that movie, and now she won't talk to me.